Hi there, welcome to the YouTube channel. I'm back again. Please hit the subscribe button, hit the like button. We're getting close to 100 and something followers now on the YouTube channel, so that'd be good. Still miles off the 1,000, but you know, every little help and subscription helps, so please do that for me. Just for the regular viewers, I'm going to give you a bit of an update of what's happening. This week's going to be a bit light on deck techs. I'm going to be honest about it. I am purely waiting for Phyrexia or will be one to launch on MTGO. When it launches, you can expect an inundation of deck techs. There will be something going up every day based around some of the new legends in the set. The two expensive ones that are already pre-ordered, Atraxa and LS Norn, I've already done. I don't think I'm going to be picking them up on MTGO time soon. I've seen the pre-prices and it's like, yeah, no. A little bit out of my price range, so I'm hoping they come down at some stage and get there. But I will be picking up some of the other legends and I will be doing deck techs around then, so keep your eyes out for them. But today is a little bit different. I've had a couple of queries on some of the other videos about what I'm doing, why I'm doing it, and not me personally doing this. I'm doing this because I love Magic, but how I do the deck builds. So what I'm going to do today is just talk through some of the key cards that I've got on MTGO that I think can really help decks. I may be talking to the converted here. People may argue with me. That's fine. If you don't want to watch it anymore, please just hit the subscribe button. Wait for tomorrow's video. It'll be a gameplay one. So, yeah, a little bit of gameplay of one of the decks I've done before. But I figured today this is a good opportunity while we're in that kind of down period between doing things to get this done. So, what I've done is pick a legend I haven't covered before on the channel. And I thought I'll use this legend to go through and show you my thought process around how I put the decks together and talk about some of the key cards that I play in the decks. Now, like I say, if I'm talking to the converted already, I'm really sorry I'm boring you. But, you know, I think it's a useful insight to the way I build decks that I do on MTGO. So, the card I've actually picked is Anafenza the Foremost. White, black and green for a 4/4 legendary human soldier. And whenever Anafenza attacks, put a +1/+1 counter on another target tapped creature you control. And if a non-token creature an opponent owns would die, or a creature card not on the battlefield would be put into an opponent's graveyard, exile that card instead. It's a fairly straightforward legend. You want to be doing things for attacking. Now, if I see this, you know, I've seen Anafenza for quite a while. It's been around since Khans, if I remember correctly. And I have built real life decks around this before, but I figured it's still worth doing just so I can talk about it. So there's two things I'm looking at on this card. Do I want to go down the route, well, three things. Do I want to go down the route of doing a soldier deck? Because obviously it's a human soldier. There's a lot of soldier synergies around at the moment. Do I want to go down the route of getting the +1/+1 counters sorted out and making sure we can maximise the amount of +1/+1 counters on creatures as we attack? Or do I want to go down the graveyard exiling route? Now, for this deck today, and you can build it in any way you want to, I'm going to go down the whole of the let's attack with soldiers that have +1/+1 counters. Probably the most common version of Anafenza you'll see, but I figured it's worth doing for this little video to explain my thought processes as I go along. So, without talking much longer, I've already got the deck set up. You can see it here. Here's MTGO. And, you know, Anafenza's there. I just picked random legendary creatures, so I'm just going to take the filter off here. Right, the first thing I do with any deck is I look at the mana base I want in it, and I look at any ramp spells I want in it. So, we'll start with the mana base. Now, as I said, MTGO, my collection is fairly extensive on here. Because of what we're trying to do, we're trying to get soldiers out, we're trying to get +1/+1 counters out. We need to start with some of the lands we need. Now, obviously, Command Tower is a given for any commander deck. You should, you know, even if you just buy a pre-con deck, you always get a Command Tower as long as it's multiple colours, so that's always there. So this will go in here. Beyond that, it's a case of looking at the right colour lands, which I'm just selecting here, including the colourless ones. So, beyond this, where are we going to go from here? Well, I'm probably going to put Savannah in. Again, I've got one on MTGO, real life, really expensive, so you can take it out. But we want the best lands we've got to play on Commander, especially on MTGO. So, you know, Blooming Marsh, Bountiful, Promenade goes in. Canopy Vista can come in. Concealed Courtyard will go in. Exotic Orchard is going in this deck because, you know, it's a 3-colour legend, so the chance that you can be playing against someone who can give you that nice little bit of colour you need, along with Fabled Passage and Field of the Dead. I really do rate Field of the Dead in a 3-colour deck. Occasionally, well, fairly regularly. I'll play it on 2 colours. I find it pointless playing it in a 1 colour deck unless you're specifically looking for zombie tokens or you're looking for creatures you can do things with. If you're playing a 1 colour deck, Field of Death's probably not worth it because the lands are a little bit ropey in my point of view. But when you get to 2 colours, because you're playing a lot of duels, you're going to play a lot of sack lands, so on and so forth, it's probably worth chucking a Field of the Dead in just so you can get that zombie benefit. And it also gives you some creatures to attack with. Going from there, Godless Shrine can go in. We'll come back to some of these. Now, I would recommend, if you haven't picked them up yet, try and get the Triomes. All of them. Not just the ones from Ikoria, but the ones that came out recently, Streets of New Capenna. I always like picking them up. That's the first thing I prioritise when a new set comes out, is to pick up any of the dual lands that are in those sets, because they're always going to be good. If you're playing standard, modern, so on and so forth, they're great for that. They're really good for Commander. I'm in a little bit of a position where I have got most of the ones that are coming out, not on MTGO, but in real life for new Phyrexia. Phyrexia all would be one, so I'll be adding some of them. But just, as an aside, try and pick up the Triomes if you can. Going from there, these ones are pretty good. The check lands, as people call them. So you've got Isolated Chapel, you've got not Overgrown Tomb. I'll chuck that in, an Overgrown Swamp. I'm trying to think of the other ones now before I miss them and make a fool of myself. Oh, there you go. Sun Petal Grove was the other one I was thinking of, and the green-black one will be turning up shortly. Chucking the Temple Garden. I'm going to chuck my Scrubland in again. Same ruling as on the previous card, which was it's really expensive in real life, Savannah. Scrubland's not cheap either, but it can go in for here because I own one on here. I'm not keen on the temples, I have to say this. People, maybe in a dual colour deck they're good, but in a 3 colour deck you want to be trying to get your lands to come into play untapped, and although the temples do that little scry thing that help you out, not something I really aim to do unless I'm a couple of lands short at the end. Undergrowth Stadium goes in. Urborg tends to go in any deck that I have with black in it because it just does that multiple black thing. Likewise, there's Woodland Cemetery, the other check land. Likewise, Yavimar Cradle of Growth goes in as well because we want forests as well. So, and just going through these first few things here, we're up to 21 lands in the deck before we've done anything else. The other ones that I will always try and play in every deck I own, Reliquary Tower. There's a lot of bounce around, there's a lot of people playing blue, and I don't really want to be discarding the stuff unless I'm manipulating my graveyard. This deck I'm not, so Reliquary Tower goes in. The other one that always goes in is usually Temple of the False God. It's a cheap way of ramping your mana up. Yes, you have to have 5 lands in play, but don't forget, if you get 4 normal lands and then that is the 5th land, so the 2 mana comes in automatically. So Temple of the False God goes in. Beyond that, it's really what I want to do to flavour the deck up a little bit. Now, if I just put in a search on Gate here. The gates that came through from Baldur, Battle for Baldur's Gate, are pretty good, and I do like playing them because they do give you options. So I've got the Black Dragon gate's going to go in, the Citadel gate will go in, and if I can find the other one, there is Mana Gate goes in as well. Yeah, gives you another way of doing dual lands. Now after that puts me at 26. I want to try be playing around about 37 for this deck, purely because that's the way I see things working out for this. It may be slightly more, it may be slightly less. But one of the things I will look for, when I can find them, there you go, are some of the other dual lands. So I've got Radiant Grove. Now, this is where you get your choices. Radiant Grove's nice because it's a forest plain, so you can search it out with some of the sack lands. Or you can go down to like the Scarred Baron and gain the extra life bits. Personally, I prefer having the lands I can search for. So Radiant Grove, Sunlit Marsh, and if I can find the other one, which I've probably missed, Halted Mere. There we go. So that puts me on 29. For this deck, I'm just going to play 2 of each basic as well, purely because I always like to have a couple of basics in the deck. So 2 forests, 2 plains are going to go in, and 2 swamps when I can find the right swamps. I'm a bit of a thing, I do like my New Capenna swamps. So that puts me on 35. But I think what I will do at this stage is just jump into my set and just grab the lands that go and search for them. So we've got Broker's Hideout, we'll go and get as a plains or a forest, so we can go get dual land. Cabaretti Courtyard will get a forest or a plains as well, so that can come in. That puts us on 37. And then if I remember correctly, the Riveters one does a swamp or a forest. So we're going to go with this. That gives us 38. That's probably a little bit high for this deck. We may drop some things out. But that's where I'm starting from. So that's the lands taken care of as far as I'm concerned. The next thing I'm going to be looking at are the artifacts, because we do want ramp in this deck. And what I will say, one thing I will say as I'm filming this, Soul Ring again comes in most of the decks, so I'll put my fancy Soul Ring in. Jeweled Lotus is fantastic. Not in this deck, I'll be honest, because it's fantastic in a dual color commander or a mono color commander deck from my point of view. At the moment, just so you know, it's bugged on MTGO, so I'm taking it out of decks at the moment on MTGO just until they sort the bugging out. Not sure when that's going to happen, but hey, that's the way it goes. But yeah, if you've got a Jeweled Lotus and you want to play in a mono deck, this would be a card that I would always include in a mono deck and a dual deck. Beyond that, I'm not so sure of it. Yes, it does help pay the commander tax, but at the moment, not too convinced by it on MTGO, so I'm ignoring it for today. The other thing I want to point out on here, because Anafenza is 3 mana, so when it dies, goes to 5, goes to 7, you do want to be ramping up. So Soul Ring's a good call. I am actually going to play the Mana Crypt in this deck. Again, if you've got one in real life, you're lucky enough to get one on the recent reprints, all well and good. If you haven't, ignore it, take it out, don't worry about it. But what I would say, one of the things I do recommend that people pick up at the moment, and they fit in most decks, are some of the suspend ones. So Mox Tantalite you can suspend for 0, and then it basically becomes another signet, Arcane Signet, which we'll go and add in a minute. Likewise, Soul Talisman does thing, cost you 1 to suspend it, but it's an extra Soul Ring. So I like playing them at the moment. I'm playing them in real life, and I'm finding them really beneficial for some of the decks. But the one thing you always want to have in, if you've got, well, you should have one, is Arcane Signet. Don't leave home without one, especially in, maybe in a monocolour deck you can ignore it and play something else. But in a tricolour deck, dual colour deck, above that, I would always play Arcane Signet. Moving from there, and I'm sure there's people complaining about what I'm doing already, so let me know in the chat what you're complaining about. Going from there, it's really a case of what do we want to do. We want to be making sure we're getting this to come through. So there are a couple of other things I do like playing. One of the big benefits with all the commander sets that have really happened recently is the diamonds have come back, and I do actually quite like playing them as a little bit of extra ramp. Or you could go the other way and play the talismans. Now, I'm more inclined in this deck because of what I'm doing to play the talismans, because taking a point of damage isn't always great, but they do come down reasonably quickly, and you do get that benefit of having that little bit of, okay, I've got coloured mana I need. Now, they're actually on MTGO, they're really cheap, and I think in real life they're not too bad at the moment if you pick up the more modern variations, some of the older ones, going back in time, maybe a little bit harder from Mirrodin, but the more recent ones from Modern Horizons might be easier to pick up. So that's what I'm doing. That's my ramp taken care of. Well, my artifact ramp and my lands taken care of for this deck. Next thing I want to look at is the actual thing we're interested in. We're interested in on this card with +1/+1 counters and soldiers. So where do we go from here is what I'm sure people are trying to work out what I'm playing out and why I've taken my filters off. There we go, we'll put them back in. So, for me, I want to start with +1/+1. I'm going to put +1/+1 counter just to make it a little bit easier. So, Anafenza is good. We want to make sure we get the +1/+1 counters around. So there are some enchantments that do this, make our creatures even bigger as we go along. So we've got Abzan Ascendancy, which is fine if you've got a whole board full, but not so great for anything else. But it does have a second ability of whenever a non-token creature you control dies, create a 1/1 white spirit token with fly. So I think it's worth putting in. The big one is Cathar's Crusade. Whenever a creature enters the battlefield under your control, put a +1/+1 counter on each creature you control. Really recommend, if you haven't got one already, going and finding one. They're not cheap, but they're good enough to go and get one, and they'll do you really well. Likewise, Hardened Scales is a key card for this. If one or more +1/+1 counters would be put on a creature you control, that many +1 are put on it. So, if you put 1 on, you get 2, so on and so forth. Put 2 on, you get 3, put 3 on, you get 4, onwards and upwards. So that's definitely going in the deck. The other thing I'm really interested in is Felidar Retreat. Yes, it's a landfall card, it's another enchantment, but we want to get the +1/+1 counters going. So if we drop a land, we can put +1/+1 on each creature. We each put +1/+1 counter on each creature you control until the end of turn. Those creatures get vigilance. It's a real beating, and it's worth having in this deck. It's a lot better than its other variation. Likewise, fight rigging I've been really impressed with since it came out from Streets of New Capenna. Okay, the hideaway is good and makes you go and find something you want, and it's not that difficult to get a 7-power creature into play to get it to cast for free. So hideaway is going in. Don't forget, even when the hideaway triggers, you still got the enchantment in place. You still get those +1/+1 counters kicked around. Going from there, there's durable handicraft as an option, but you have to pay for that one, so I'm less likely to want to be doing that at the moment. We've also got some of these, you've got grafted growth, you've got new horizons. Not sure that's the way we want to go at the moment, but this isn't bad. Echoes of the King Tree is not a bad card. It basically 3 mana sink and you can bolster 1, which basically means the creature with the lowest toughness gets a +1/+1 counter on it. So we're going to chuck this in because that gives us a mana sink later in the game, which isn't the worst thing in the world to have. The last card I'm going to chuck in at this stage is, 2 cards. Whenever a creature you control, so Death's Present. Whenever a creature you control dies, put X +1/+1 counters on a target creature you control, where X is the power of the creature that died. So that's one that I'm thinking about. I'll put it in for now. We may take it out. But the other one I'll put in is the Primeval Bounty, just because that does give us some beasts. It gives a bit of life gain if we need it. And it also does the whole +1/+1 counter thing, which keeps us on theme. So we'll go for there for now. That's enough enchantments in the deck, I think. We're now up to 16 other things. I'm going to be completely honest, because I'm playing a green deck. I'll just drop the +1/+1 count. I won't drop it at the moment, because the card I do want to point out is Titania's Command. This needs to be in the deck. More +1/+1 counters, and it does some searching and ramping, so this is going in. That's just that side of it. Now, sorceries, we want to look at the ramp. Yes, we've got ramping, but it's all artifact based or lands, and we need to be quicker than that for this deck to really function properly. So it is worth having a rampant growth. It is worth having a Sylvan Scrying. It is worth, if I can find Farseek. I'm sure that I thought I had a promo one somewhere. I can't find it. Okay, Farseek. There you go. That's the 2 mana ramp. Are always really good, especially if you're playing a green deck. It's worth having them. Farseek's fine in this deck. I know it's we're looking at green base. It doesn't go and get forest, but with the tri-land we've got in and some of the other dual lands in, you can always go and get it. Okay. The other thing I will always try and play in my green decks, and it's just because I like the card, and you've probably seen it in a few decks before now, and I can't even find it now. There it is, Genesis Wave. Genesis Wave is just one of my pet cards. I tend to play it in a lot of my green decks on Commander, purely because I like the fact that if I've got a whole load of ramp happening and a whole load of mana, I can just pay X and try and get many cards off the top as I can. Whether it's going to be any good in this deck, I don't know. I'm going to drop one in for now, and we'll see what happens. I'll show you the rest of the deck in a minute. I'm just leaving the thing down here so you can see the cards so I talk about them. The other card, because we're in the right colours, is going to be Eerie Ultimatum. Again, the Ultimatums are really good. There are original ones back from Scars. There's these ones that came through from Ikoria. It's worth picking up one of each from my point of view if you're playing tricolour decks. They also have a home. I mean, I think I've got a lot of the Ultimatums in my Planeswalker deck. I have a 5-colour Super Friends deck, and they're all in there as well. So, recommend you go and grab them. The other sorcery I want to put in at the moment is Cultivate. Just to go and do the whole get a couple of basic lands and then go from there. Now, as you notice, I'm trying to avoid doing the basic stuff too much because we're only playing 6 basic lands in the whole deck. So we want to try and keep off them as much as we can. But there is one card, when I can find it. He says scrolling through. If I do it this way. because I am playing gates, that's the one I'm looking for. Circuitous Route is really good. It goes and fetches 2 of the gates. It actually goes and fetches out a couple of dual lands and puts them in play. So it's worth having from that point of view. So that's it for the land ramp, the sorceries for the ramp. But we do want to have a little bit of control in the deck. And on MTGO for me, when I'm playing these colours, that is Damnation, that is Wrath of God, and it is also Day of Judgment and Damn. Damn's a good one if you pick it up, but you can either destroy a target creature, or if you can overload it for the Wrath of God cost, you get to blow the board up. So yeah, some removal spells to keep it fairly clean, keep it helpful is good. The other one I would potentially look at for this deck, you could look at Casualties of War, which is a card I do play quite regularly and I do enjoy. Doomscar's very good just for the actual foretell side of it. You can do it on turn 2 and have it sitting there where no one can touch it until you really need it. Shatter the Sky is okay as well. I mean, any of the 4 mana costing Wrath effects are fantastic as far as I'm concerned. You can play all of them. I'm not playing them in this deck because it seems a bit going OTT otherwise, so but just bear that in mind. The other sorcery I do want to mention at this stage is Rise of the Dark Realms. It is a card that I would really think about playing if I was doing a monocolour deck. For a tricolour deck, I'm going to ignore it for today. But it is one of those cards that means you can just win the game by nicking everybody's stuff as it goes along. So it is worth having there. One card that I do also recommend people try and pick up where they can, apart from Blood Money, destroy all for each non-token creature destroyed. This way you get a treasure token, and I am going to drop this one in even though it's 7 mana, and I've just said, you know, about Rise of the Dark Realms. This can come in, but Rise of the Dark Realms is nice, so it's not that bad. But the other card I recommend you pick up if you're playing any white decks is always going to be Approach of the Second Sun, purely because I like having these as a secondary win condition, so that gives me another way of winning the game if need be. Right, so we're kind of getting there now. We're up to 30, we're up to 68 cards. That leaves us with 31 slots. Now, at this point, I will start looking at things and cutting things out, but I do want a couple of instants in the deck. The first one I want is Path to Exile, just to deal with anything that's really annoying. And the second one I also want, if I can find it. Where's it gone? It's Teferi's Protection. There it is. Teferi's Protection is just one of those cards that is really good in any deck that runs white. So pick one up if you haven't got one, just to phase out and save yourself for a turn. The last one I'm going to chuck in, so we don't get stuck with too much, is Beast Within. This is purely because it does take out permanent, you know, maybe an annoying artifact, an enchantment, so on and so forth you want to get rid of. Yes, it gives them a 3/3 beast, but it just does deal with anything at instant speed for 3 mana, which I really do like. Planeswalker wise, there's a choice of Planeswalkers for this deck. I'm going to come back to the Planeswalkers in a minute. I'm just going through the list as we go up the pile. You could look at Ajani, Mentor of Heroes, chuck some more +1/+1 counters around. I like having Garrick do the whole untap thing. But, you know, and Sorin's, one of the Sorin, this one, Sorin Lord of Innistrad, nice because it can permanently come down, -2 it, make sure you've got that emblem. If it dies, it doesn't matter. I'm quite happy paying 4 mana for a permanent power pump to my creatures, so I'm going to chuck Sorin in now. I have just realised there is one key enchantment I've missed out as well, but we'll come back to that right now because it is here. He says, looking for it really quickly. See, this is what happens. This is why I don't usually build decks when I'm recording, because I change my mind as I go through things. Hold on, I'm just going to pause while I find it, then I'll come back. Had to do a bit of fiddling around so I can find it. Right, Growing Rights of Imlatic. This is your very cheap version of Gaea's Cradle. It is a lovely card. I would recommend picking them up if you haven't got them already. For those of you who don't know what it does, there you go. When it comes into play as an enchantment, look at the top 4 cards, get a creature card, put it in your hand, put everything else in the bottom of your library in any order. But if you've got 4 or more creatures in play, you get to flip it, and it transforms into the Cradle of the Sun, which basically is a slightly better version of Gaea's Cradle back in the day, because this will tap for green if you haven't got any creatures in place. You've still got land, but it also taps for green for each creature you've got if you've got a load of creatures in place. So yeah, we're going to chuck in Growing Rights in just to help that out and go from there. Right, from that point of view, so I'm just going to make this a little bit smaller again. Just reset my filters. Right, we're going to go back onto here now, and it is time to look at the creatures, because at the moment we've got 20. Don't forget we're going to have 99 cards in the main deck, so that gives us 26 creatures that we can include at the moment. So I'm purely going to look at creatures at the moment, and then I'm going to pick my things out. Now, normally I'd say go for the ramp side of things, but for this deck I'm going to try and hold off doing that. But we just want things that we're going to win with. So we're going to have a look and see if there's anything that's +1/+1. Anything that helps us chuck them around. And there are at least 2 soldiers. And we can limit it on here as well. Subtype. Just have to scroll down a little bit. So we'll have a look and see what the good soldiers are. I think it's soldiers and clerics is what we're really interested in at the moment. If I remember my types correctly. There we go. Right, okay. So, Relic Seeker, not interested in that. We are interested in Anafenza, because it does do the bolster thing when creatures come into play. So that's the first one. I quite like the Saviour of Ollenbog because of the training side of thing and the Lexiling as well. From a graveyard of creature when put it back under their control. It's a little bit dodgy, but it does have training, but it's a little bit expensive. Luminarch Aspirant should be in. I'll be honest, this is not ever going to be good. I promise you that much. So that automatically gets added to the deck. Likewise, the latest version of it, when I can find it. Oh, there should be one in the Brothers War, I thought. There we go. Siege Veteran. That's the one I was looking for. Yep. More +1/+1 counters, so it's worth having them both in from that point of view. Beyond that, it's really a choice of preference. Now, one of the things I do recommend is Conclave Mentor, because it kind of does do the whole bit of hardening scales, but on a creature body, so bear that in mind. So that comes in. We've also got Torres, the Fist of Angels. Training, creatures come in, generation, that sounds good. Thalia's Lieutenant, chucks +1/+1 counters around on each human you control when it comes in. Yes, you're not always going to have humans, but you might as well try and do it while you can. The other two, Azban Battle Priest gives all creatures +1 with a +1/+1 counter on them lifelink, so it keeps you in play. And Azban Falconer does the same thing, but gives all your creatures with +1/+1 counters flying. So, you know, you're going to alpha strike from somewhere, you might as well alpha strike from here. Going a little bit further down into the creatures, you could play the Herald of Anafenza if you wanted to. I'm not overly keen on it. But it's there. King Darian's pretty good. It does pump all the creatures up, and we get to create soldier tokens and give away making things indestructible. So we'll chuck one of them in. Sitting at 82 now. We've got 17 slots left. Beyond that, you can put in a Kingbinder as well. Gives all your creatures with +1/+1 counters first strike. So you might as well have this in. And I can't find the green one at the moment. Let me just take the subtypes off and just go and find the green one. The green one's really good. It gives them more trample. It'll be miles down here somewhere. He says looking for... I think it costs about 4 mana to do it, if I remember correctly. Let me find the card. Hold on. Right, found him now. Did it the simple way and did the Outlast search. So, Tuskar Captain gives all the creatures with +1/+1 trample, so we'll have one of them in. The Longshot Squad gives them all reach, so we'll have this in. Mer-Ek Nightblade is the assassin that gives them all death touch for +1/+1 counters, so we also have that in as well. So it really does help us pump our creatures up from that point of view. So, take the Outlast back off. So, you know, we're up to 86 now. And we want some things that are really good. So, what I always look for is then things that are really going to help me win the game at some stage at this point. Going up to... so, we'll start with Lenore Autumn Sovereigns. Nice little wage one cards. It's worth having this in play. So, we'll chuck one of them in. Sun Titan, as you can see, we've got a whole load of things that are 3 and 2 and 1 and 0. So, we might as well have a Sun Titan in to bring them back. Gives us a nice big pump of win condition. Sylvan Caryatids going in, just a little bit more ramp. I know I said I was going to try and avoid them, but this one's quite nice. It's got hexproof as well, so it always sticks around. So I prefer this over some of the other options. So I'm chucking this in. We've got Anafenza in. Achroma is nice in this deck. Each other creature you control gets +1/+1 if it has flying, +1/+1 if it has first strike, and so on and so forth. Now, if you've got some of the Outlast creatures in play and you've got them activated, Achroma becomes a massive beater for them. So we're going to chuck Achroma in from here. Likewise, I'm also looking at some other things. You know, we do need things to win the game with now. That's what we're looking for to make things happen. One of those things is create a hoof. So this goes in for me. I'm also looking at, nope, not that version of the god. Where's Heliod's, the other version? There we go. The Sun Crown one, because they can give people lifelink and then gets more +1/+1 counters. So, you know, we'll get that in as well. Got 7 slots left, basically. Then it's really just a case of the last 7 slots are really what you want to play. I am just going to go with some of my favourites now, because I think I've got, you know, I've got 19 creatures so far. We might have to go and take some more out if we want to put some more in. So I'm going to put Platoon Dispenser in, because I do like this from the Brothers War. I'm also going to chuck in a Nekthroth Apex of Death, because we may need to return some of our creatures from our graveyard to the battlefield on the mutate side. And at the end of the day, if we don't do that, Death Touch and Lifelink for 5 mana for a 5/5 is fine by me. Camel Heart of Crozer is something I do think about occasionally, but I think in this deck it's not as great as it could be. I think this is one that deserves being built around on its own with a partner pairing, so that may be a video we'll do at some stage in the future. Grave Titan, another great win condition. People panic, you know, 6 mana gives you 10 powers worth of creatures, so we'll chuck one of them in. I do like Drana, Liberator of Malakir, because, you know, this got first strike and then it pumps all your other creatures up, so, you know, we'll have one of them in. Going back to the top here, I think there is one card that I haven't included yet, so we are going to have to drop some of the other stuff out and work around it a little bit. Be careful. Thalia is something people do like, but it's also a bit of a bind on some people's ideas. You do tend to become a target if you get the Thalias out, unless you're playing Death and Taxes. Be aware of that, please. I'm going to put in the Ancient Gold Dragon, I think. It's quite nice to get this through the top. So we're going to chuck this in. And then I'm just going to put the last 2 support cards in I haven't put in before I look at what I'm thinking about otherwise. I'm not happy. My creature count's a little bit low. And the 2 cards I'm now going to put in are going to make it even lower, unfortunately. But we do need them for this deck. First one, Swiftfoot Boots. You just want to be able to protect your commander and give it haste, so this is going in. And the other one I play a lot of, and you've seen it in other deck texts before now, is the Elixir of Immortality. We're going to chuck that in just so you can do it that way. Now that gives me 24 creatures and 37 non-creature spells, which I'm not overly happy with. So I'm going to take some of the things out. So I'm going to drop Blood Money, and I'm also actually going to hurt my own feelings and drop the Genesis Wave. So I'm going to go back to my creatures and have a look and see if there's anything else I think I should be including. Now, don't forget, if you've got different creatures, it's entirely up to you what you want to play in your deck. I'm just doing it from my point of view and what I've got readily available. So I'm going to chuck in a Verge Gearhulk, because that does chuck +1/+1 counters around as well. Gives us a bit more here on the 5 drops. And the other thing I am probably going to chuck in is going to be the Hydra Broodmaster. It's quite a nice little touch, but I am up and down between this and maybe some version of some god. So I'm a little bit stuck at the moment. Athros, the God of Passage, is also my other choice, because it does bring the creatures back to my hand, so people have to pay life if they want to die. So I think that may be better. That puts my creature count up to 26. Still think there's too many other things in there. So this is where it gets a little bit complicated. What do you want to cut out and what do you want to keep in? Now, from my point of view, it's mainly the ramp side of things I don't touch. I've got Wrath of God, Day of Judgment in already. I'm actually thinking maybe we'll drop one of these. I'll probably drop the Day of Judgment just for now and just go with yet another creature. And that creature is going to be something very useful, I hope. But it's my decision now on what I take out. I feel a bit bad doing this. We'll maybe do Gower of Grave Spawls. Give us some blockers. That sounds like a good plan. I'm a bit happy with 27. Gower of Spawls, you can remove +1/+1 counters from creatures and get saprolings. Which isn't the worst plan in the world. Ooh. So we go with that side of things. The other thing I'm actually thinking about is chucking in Eldandra, the Dusk of Rose. Whenever the creature dies, put +1/+1 counter on Elandra, and when Elandra dies, you get all those nice vampires with lifelink, which is quite nice. If this dies and you've got Cathar's Crusade in play, you do get a very big army of vampires. So I think that's a good shout. And to compensate for that, instead of dropping one of the other cards, I'm just going to go through and see which one of the lands I think is going to be less useful. Let's put it that way. And my gut feeling at the moment is to take out Woodland Cemetery. The reason I'm taking out Woodland Cemetery, and I am taking it out, is because I've got Urborg and I've got Yavimaya, and Woodland Cemetery just gives me black and green, whereas all the other lot of the other dual lands give me white as well. So that's it. This is how we're going to have Anafenza built. This is how the deck is going to play. I hope it's given you a little bit more of an insight to how I build personally. Tell me if you like this. Let me know in the comments down below. I'll try and play the deck on stream at some stage when we've got a spare night, when I'm not running around doing all the wonderful stuff I want to get done with the new set for Phyrexia will be one. So that's it. Let me know in the comments how you go around building things. I just thought it was nice to talk you through my thought process. So have fun, and hopefully you'll catch up, and I'll see you in the next video with some gameplay, which will be out tomorrow before we really start hitting Phyrexia Will Be One. Thanks for watching. Take care. I'll see you soon on stream, hopefully. Bye.